Hello and welcome to Funfold Friday. My name is Erica from Me Too Paper Crafts. Look at this beautiful card. I made this about a month ago when I received this brand new stamp set from the annual catalog, and I showed my team how to make this. It's a great Funfold for using up your designer series papers. You can use two sides of the paper or pull in different patterns, whatever you like. You've got this center panel here of basic white, or you could use very vanilla if that's the base color of your designer series paper. And this is the spot where you can write your sentiment. So I'm going to show you how to create the folds in here and also how to create some kind of an embellishment. I thought I would use a different die this time. This is from the Tasteful Labels die collection. I love this set because it has lots of label options. The stamp set I decided to use is called In Bloom. I love this set mostly because of the dies. All of the dies have stitching on them, so they cut out beautifully, and you have lots of variety for building flowers. I pre-cut some flowers that I could build up on this card ahead of time just to save time on the video. I cut out some flowers and some leaves, and I matched up the colors with this designer series paper. This is from a 48 sheet pack of 12 by 12 paper. It's in the annual catalog, and it is a great set to have. One side has all different colors in the pack, and the other side has all black and white. And what's great about the black and white is that you can do lots of blending of colors on them. So you get lots of variety. So I wanted to show you how I cut this paper. I basically took a 12 by 12 sheet and I cut it at 5.5 because 5.5 is the height of your card. And I'm going to show you how to cut that as well as the scoring measurements for the cardstock. This cardstock measures 5.5 by 11. That's for your card base, and I've chosen the Poppy Parade color. And I'm just going to pull out my scoreboard and do the different score marks on here. Now you can use your stylus for this. I like to rub some wax paper over the cardstock to make my stylus not catch on the fibers of the cardstock. I just like to do that. So because it's cardstock, you can use the smaller end of the stylus to make your score lines. So the first score line that you're going to do is at 4 1/4. You're doing this on the long side, so 4 1/4. The second score line is at 7 inches, and the last score line is at 9 3/4. So those are your three score lines: 4 1/4, 7, and 9 3/4. So you can put your scoreboard away. You could have used your trimmer for this as well. And now I'm going to show you how to fold it. So the largest piece is the back of the card. So you might as well just lay that down on your desktop. Let me pull in the other card to show you how it folds. And that will be your largest piece of designer series paper. So you're going to fold that over and use your bone folder to create a nice folded edge. This is called burnishing, when you burnish your score lines. Then you're going to fold over the next piece, just fold it right over as if that's the whole card, and then you're going to fold that second score line back over itself, and then you're going to fold over the narrow piece to the front, and that is your card. Now make sure you burnish all of your folds really well. Okay, there you go. Next step is to show you how to cut the designer series paper. And again, you can choose different patterns or just use the one piece. Now, because the height of the card is 5.5, I cut this to 5 1/4 by 11. You will have some left over. And I'm just going to pull in my trimmer this time and do some cutting. So your first cut line is at 4 inches. So that's going to become your inside back panel at 4 inches by 5 1/4. Your second piece is cut at 2.5 inches by 5 1/4. And then your third piece for that narrow strip on the front of the card is cut at 1 inch by 5 1/4. And then you have quite a large piece left over for some other project. Let's put the scoreboard away, or sorry, the trimmer away. And now we can start gluing our DSP to the card. So I like to use my silicone mat when I'm using my adhesives. I'm pulling in my Stamp and Seal. I'm just putting 2 strips along each edge. And I will do my best to get that nicely centered on that back panel. That strip there is your center strip, and that is actually for your basic white piece, which I have sitting here somewhere. Let me just find it. There we go. And before I glue that in, I might want to do some stamping on there. So we'll leave that alone for now. So let's continue putting in our other pieces of DSP. Now you can choose to flip over your DSP at this point in time and use the reverse if it's a coordinating pattern of some kind or coordinating color, as I did in my original card. And I also pulled in a different strip for the blue on the front. So really you can do whatever you want. It's a good chance to pull out your scraps and see what you've got. So I'm going to do a consistent look. I'm going to use the same DSP on all 3 panels. Even that very front panel, the narrow panel, you could put a piece of basic white on there and stamp a design. There's lots of possibilities for different designs. So I'm gluing this one with my Stamp and Seal again and get that lined up and stuck down. Okay, now for the final panel, which is at the front. I've got just this narrow strip 1 by 5 1/4, and I'll get that glued down. There we go. Okay, those are all of our layers of designer series paper. Look how beautiful that looks. I love that Poppy Parade background. Now to decide on the inner panel, I think I'm going to build the front. I called it an embellishment, but it's really a focal piece for the card. And I need another piece of basic white to cut that out. And I will pull in the mini Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, but I'm just trimming this paper down so that it fits on the platform, because the platform is more narrow than the regular Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine. But I love this mini because I can pull it right to my desk and work. And here's a fun fact. Over 90% of our dies fit on this mini machine. So if you're tight for money or tight for space, this is a great little machine to get. It does the same as the original Big Shot. It has the cutting plates, and you can also use embossing folders in it. However, Stampin' Up! Has been designing more narrow embossing folders so it fits in the machine. The larger embossing folders will not, for obvious reasons. Okay, so I need my base plate and then my 2 cutting plates. So let's put the die in there face down. And when you're lining up your plates, you don't want them all to be flush at the end. You want to sort of pull the top plate back to create a bit of a step there. It just makes it go through the machine a lot easier. So I push it in a little bit and then I start cranking it through. Easy peasy, and you get a beautiful cut out label. Okay, I'll just put this away now, and then we'll start to work on our focal point on the front of the card. So I want this on the front of the card, and I'm going to center it. And for the inside of the card, I may do some stamping, but I did cut out some extra pieces, so I might just use those on the card. The inside piece, I mean. This is the beautiful new Pale Papaya. It's one of our new in colors, layered on top of the Poppy Parade. And then I cut out some leaves in Granny Apple Green and Pool Party, because those are the colors in the designer series paper that I'm using. So I have 3 flowers here that I cut out. So yeah, I could easily use one on that inside piece rather than do some stamping. So let's start building this up. Now, of course, you want to only put glue on the left edge of that piece. You don't want it to be glued down to that second panel. Otherwise, your card won't open. Of course, that could be another design element. You could glue down that narrow piece and not have that narrow piece open. Just have one opening on the card. That's, again, another design choice that you have. So I'm just going to hold this in place to make sure it's stuck down. And now let's build up some flowers with leaves. So deciding where to put it is the next step. And where am I going to put in the leaves? So I like to lay out my pieces ahead of time just to see where they're going to fit. And another thing I sometimes do is I use my phone and I take a picture of what I've put down so that when I take it all apart and then want to glue it together, I can see the picture and see what I did. Or you can do different design elements and take several pictures and decide which one you like better. So let's grab my Tombow glue. I just put a little dot in the center of the flower, and when I lay the smaller flower on top, I like to kind of overlap it, not directly on the other petals. I like to kind of skew it a little bit because that's how natural flowers look. And then I'm going to stick the leaves on the back. So you want to pull out your silicone mat when you're doing gluing. and that helps keep your work surface tidy. It's horrible when you get glue everywhere and then everything sticks to it. So the silicone mat is a great, I call it a basic tool for crafting. So I've just put a bit of glue on the bottom of that leaf there, and then I'm gluing the flower on top. Now, when you do die cuts, make sure you know that there is a right and a wrong side. The wrong side is kind of bumpy. It's where the paper fibers have been pushed down. So you want to make sure you have the right side up when you're assembling. So I'm just putting the two granny apple green leaves towards the bottom of the flower with the blue leaf at the top. Okay, and then to stick it on the card, I really want to give it some height. So we use our dimensionals. We have two sizes, a larger dimensional and a small mini dimensional. And they also come in black, because if you're working with darker colors, when you sort of look at the card from the side, you don't want to see these white bits sticking underneath. So the black is really handy for all your darker colors. So I'm using both the large and the small dimensionals, mini dimensionals. And I'm using my take your pick tool, what I call the pokey end, to lift them off the sheet. And then I use it to pull off the backing. I wanted to make sure I had enough dimensionals on there so that particularly that blue stem, I don't want that sort of bending, as you pull it in and out of the envelope. So I'm going to glue those all down, but I'm making sure that the dimensional does not stick to that second panel. You see, you want it to be able to lift off. There you go. Doesn't that look nice? And then in the center of the flower, you could have cut out another die. There's some smaller dies in there for the center piece of the flower, or you can use some kind of an embellishment. I have a box of embellishments. I'm just going to look through here and see what I've got. I really love these. I cannot remember what they're called. I will put them in the supply list on the blog post. But there's 4 different colors in here, and I just love these. These are sequins without holes in them. I just love these, and you can actually layer them. You can layer a smaller sequin on top of a larger sequin. And they're kind of shimmery. Fluorescent is the word I'm looking for. They're really pretty. So I've decided to use the Calypso coral colored ones, putting a larger one as the center of the flower and then a couple of smaller ones, just to sort of brighten up that focal point. Look how pretty that is. What a pretty, pretty card. All right, last thing we have to do is just to work on our inside piece. And again, I'm just going to glue these flowers together with the leaves. I'm making sure that I've got the right side up on those die cuts. And then I know I have another leaf here somewhere. There it is. The die cuts have 2 sized leaves here. So I'm just arranging this on the flower to make sure it fits the width, within the width of that basic white piece. So let's now glue it to the card. And then we will glue it to the card base. And you've got lots of room there, the upper portion of that white piece, to write your sentiment. Or you could, it would be at this point that you should decide to stamp a greeting. Actually, it should have been before you added the flower, just in case it doesn't stamp well. And then you could have turned the white piece over and started over. I always do my stamping first before anything else, certainly before I glue it to the inside of my card. So there you go. Very, very pretty card. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I love the solid DSP design right throughout the card. So lots of other things you could do in here. You could add a couple of other pieces of Whisper White, say half of it on that back panel if you had more to say, or if you had more greetings you wanted to put in there. So yeah, once you've done one or two cards, lots of different ideas could come flowing to you. So I'll pull in this other card so you can see it. There you go. And it fits beautifully in our regular A2 sized envelopes. So I hope you enjoyed today's card, and I hope that you will make one. Be sure to check below this video, in the video description. There will be a link to the blog post with photos and all of the cutting and scoring measurements. So thank you once again for joining me today. Bye for now.